So good afternoon, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We had a lot of people register today, and we have a lot of them online with us, and so we're excited to talk to you about thriving and not just surviving in summertime, especially during a pandemic. I have three other fantastic presenters with me. First of all, I'm Phil Petru. I'm the assistant head of school and the head of the primary school at the Langley School. I have with me Amy Jones, our director of academic resource. I have Lamecca Coates, our Dean of Students in the middle school, and I have Lauren Hook, our counselor for primary and lower school. Just a couple housekeeping items. Know that our presenters, we're gonna all take turns during this time. We'll have our screens off when we're not presenting and muted, and then our presenters will obviously put their microphones and screens on when they come on. And at the end, we're going to have some time for some Q&A. So think about those. I think you can share those in the chat function. We have someone working with us to collect those, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end answering that. So again, we're excited to have you here and join us. Our presentation will be around 20-25 minutes, and with some time for about 5 minutes to 10 minutes of Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and start us and get us going with it. And so the goal of our session is for that you can walk away with some ideas around summer with fun and laughter, some academic enrichment, and not just for the summer, but also developing lifelong skills for your children while they're at home. Our agenda, I'm going to take us through the first part and acknowledge some of the challenges to this summer in particular. There's always, I think, challenges in summer, but let alone when we're trying to survive during a pandemic. Lauren's going to jump on after me and talk about structure, routine, and self-care, and kind of give some responses to these challenges. And then Amy and Lamecca will round us out with some really great examples around academic enrichment that you can work with your kids of all ages. And then we'll come back and I'll close this out and we'll go into some Q&A. So let me start talking about the summer in general. And, you know, at Langley, you know, our team feels there's three challenges that are before you this summer. And always in summertime, you're balancing multiple roles, but maybe even more so this time. Obviously, as a parent, and then recently in these last few months, as a homeschooler, as a teacher, you're balancing those roles. But we also know that you're balancing your roles as a friend, as a family member, as a spouse, as a worker, co-worker. My wife and I were kidding about this, and maybe some of you have seen this posted in terms of the family all at home doing work. We no longer refer to our two girls as our kids, but as our co-workers. So, you know, and it was funny when I went down to the basement to work on some distance learning and have some meetings. My daughter said, "Have a great day at work, Dad," as I went the stairs down. So I'm with you on that. It's balancing, it's challenging. So we have to acknowledge that as we think about moving forward with our summer. And then typically, as school has come to an end, overcoming no and building that intrinsic motivation. Maybe you've heard it already. I hate to admit that I've heard it already in the first hour yesterday morning of why do I have to, and I'm bored already, and I can't do this, and I don't want to. And so we're going to provide you some really concrete ideas and philosophies around how to handle that motivational piece. And then last but not least, you know, really coming to light is the issue around self-care. Kids and families are not having the social interactions that they've had in the past. School provides that for them. It provides it for families as well, especially at Langley, who families respond to us all the time saying what a great community Langley is. So it's hard. You know, mental health professionals around the country are seeing more and more calls in, more visits, obviously through video, but huge increases in the amount of families and individuals who are seeking that kind of help. So what I want to do is now turn it over to Lauren, who will talk about some strategies around addressing some of those three challenges that I just mentioned. Lauren?
All right, well, thank you, Phil. One of the things that we want to acknowledge is that, you know, it has been a difficult spring, certainly a unique time where during distance learning, you all were managing not only your own work schedules and things that you need to do, but also supporting your children during distance learning. And so everybody needs a reset for sure, and we feel the same way. But one of the things that we know about children, and especially during school and during the summer, is that routines and schedules are really important. They seem to crave that. We know that that's what they love about coming to school, is they know what to expect. They know that they're going to see their friends, and they know what classes and the fun things that they're going to do during that day. So that is equally important during the summer. Even when we need some time, some downtime and some rest, they still want to know what they're going to do. They want to know what is coming next. It provides a lot of comfort for them. And so one of the things that you guys can do, not only in terms of developing a schedule, is to set some summer goals and wish lists. When your children know that they have a lot of fun things to look forward to, they can easily anticipate, they're excited. It builds a lot of excitement in the family when they have an idea of what's to come. And so one of the ideas that we thought would be really exciting for as you're building a wish list and some ideas for some structure and routine is that during summer studio, and I've helped out with summer studio many years, and one of the great successes with it is that they have these fun weekly themes or daily themes that builds a lot of excitement for the kids. And we thought it would be a really great way to have you guys be able to incorporate this at home. So we came up with some ideas of what you could do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, kind of centered around like a play on words. And I especially love Water Wednesday, where you could set up some sprinklers in the yard or go out to the pool, whatever it may be. But having an idea or a theme for your kiddos, it gives them something to look forward to, and it builds a lot of family fun. So we go to the next one. Thank you. And one of the things that is great about the summer is that it really gives you a time to kind of explore your interests, but also your child's interests. Maybe they have something that they've been starting off at home, but haven't really had time to delve deep into it. Or maybe it's an idea of something new that they've just developed and something that they've been wanting to try. And now is an excellent time to let their interests kind of guide you with developing some activities or way to keep them engaged this summer. I know I usually save a lot of projects for the summer myself, and it's just a really great time where you can work with your child and take the time to explore that. And we put down here consumers versus producers. Sometimes kids want to just sit and play a video game and kind of zone out for a little bit, but really thinking about a way where they can produce something, make something, create something together gets them to be able to be a little bit more engaged and have it be a little bit more of a meaningful project. And then this is really important. Children need to play. They need that unstructured playtime where they can go out, in the backyard or in the home and just explore. It really does have a connection with how during that time where you feel like it might just be very free flowing, it really serves them a lot of benefits that has been proven through research that are going to carry them further during the school year, just having that time to play. And so we recommend finding time for play every single day. And I know your kids will love it too. And so with that, again, to go kind of link this back to the need for structure and routine is maybe finding a dedicated time where they know that they can just play every day. And maybe that's in the morning when you need to tackle work and they can work on centers. Or maybe it's in the afternoon when you can take them outside and go to a park or go out in the backyard. But having some designated time will be really important for them. And then too, this is where a part that you can play into it. Adults need self-care. They need time to play. They need time to relax. And modeling this for your children is just as important as allowing them to do it as well. And I believe I'm going to turn it over to Amy and Lamecca to talk about the academic piece.
Good morning again, everyone. So as Lauren has spoken about just the importance of play, I know sometimes it can be really challenging to just find that perfect balance between play and some of the academic learning opportunities that we would like students to have. So as we begin to look at ways to integrate those opportunities for both play and learning, consider building independence into the schedule and creating opportunities for student input. So consider asking your child if there's a preferred time of day that they would feel optimal to complete their learning tasks. For some students, that could be very early in the morning because that's when their energy is best and at its height. So completing some of those learning activities in the morning might be best for your individual child. However, for some children, they need some time to kind of relax and let go and wake up and really experience the morning before their brains and energy is ready to jump into learning activities. So just figuring out when the best time is for your child by engaging them in conversation. And this is a pretty low stakes time. It's summertime. So this is a great time to kind of test that out and ask your child what time of day, whether that's early morning, late morning, afternoon, to figure out what time might be best for them. The other is varying the activities, the learning activities that students do. So that may also create some excitement, as Lauren had pointed out, in terms of students looking forward to each day. So on a given day, maybe there might be a combination of social studies and math, and on another day, a combination of, let's say, language arts and science, but varying those activities so that students aren't getting bored with a rote routine every day. Also, depending on the age of your child, you may consider doing a checklist of activities. So instead of having a designated time of day, let's say from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, these are your learning activities. It could mean for your child that you put down a checklist of the activities that they need to complete by an agreed upon time, and students get a chance to check off those things on their list as they go throughout their day. And what that will allow a student to do is create their own kind of independent breaks, and they can work as long as they feel they have the energy to work. It gives them the opportunity to take the breaks when they feel they need breaks most. And there's an agreement between both the parent and child as to when the checklist needs to be completed and that the student will actually complete the checklist. Also, we want to consider those things that students do throughout the day that are considered play and learning, where there's an overlap, and taking advantage of that. And these strategies will help to create, as Phil spoke about early in the presentation, just about creating buy-in for students and contribute to intrinsic motivation, students being motivated to actually complete their schedule because they had some buy-in in creating it. So as we're looking at some of those academic enrichment activities, there's countless ways that students can reinforce math skills that are engaging and relatively painless. We have some examples here where students can have $5 and think about how they could spend that at the corner store. If a lot of families are going out and about, whether it's for a bike ride or short car ride, students can then take the opportunity. For really young students, maybe they're learning to count. I know my kids always liked counting cars or school buses. So being able to count how many, not as many school buses right now, but maybe how many red cars they see and keeping count of that. And if your child is a little older where they can add, creating an arithmetic problem with the counting that students are doing, just finding opportunities to make it engaging and fun for younger kids keeps the math learning going and reinforces those skills. For grades 4 through 8, math can continue to be fun and enriching and engaging for students. Some activities that students really enjoy but don't realize that they're engaging in math is definitely through cooking. Recipes allow students to work with fractions and addition, and it allows just a lot of great engagement and fun for students. Students can figure out what route they want to take. A lot of families, again, are out riding and walking. So students being able to track how long they walked, how far that they walked, even incorporating maybe some health and wellness and PE into that as well. Another creative way for students in grades 4 through 8 to reinforce math skills is maybe during this time students are saving up for something in particular. Maybe students receive money for chores. This is a great time to introduce the idea of maybe taxes or savings. And students have to earn their money, and as they earn it, put a certain amount of money aside for savings. If you wanted to calculate your state taxes, students will be able to do that as well. And again, get some real life examples of math in that space. Also, gas prices are fluctuating at this time. If students are interested in that, they can keep track of the gas prices and what that means for consumers as well as producers. Next up, you'll hear from Amy.
Thanks. In terms of literacy, I think that the overall advice I would have is to try to keep it simple for yourself and for your child. We've got some great ideas below. I've been seeing in my town a lot of art on the sidewalks, but students can also, your children can also add words to art. If you want them to practice sight words, if they're in the younger elementary grades, they could take a pail of water and a brush and have them write words on the sidewalk or on the blacktop. You could also help them be marketing folks early on and working with their words, but they could try a product and they could write about it, what's good about it, how would you describe it, could they sell it to someone, creating an advertisement. Even better would be for them to invent their own product and to try to sell that to someone. I know that there are a lot of problems that come up, and when there's a problem that comes up, put your kids on it and see if they can help you come up with a solution. We're all yearning to travel if we can, but they could use this time where we're not traveling as much to plan a trip. They could use guidebooks, maps, the internet. They could write a persuasive letter to you in terms of where they'd like to go and try to convince you that when things open up even further, this is the place where we should go as a family. I'm thinking of roles that children can play in terms of supporting their literacy. They can become a journalist and report on the doings in the neighborhood. I imagine they're not traveling so much now, but they could be a reporter. They could tell a story from different perspectives and really become the neighborhood sleuth. Again, they could be a game board creator, taking a book that they love and they know, and they could create a game board around it. I actually know that that's a really challenging task, as I've had a friend try to do that. They could write their own comic strip. Again, a super challenging task, but one that combines a love of art and dialogue, again, which is an important literacy skill. And then one of my favorites is perhaps having children write a book for someone else. They could, again, it could be a gift for the holidays, but they are experts in something, whether it be golf or tennis or Minecraft. They could write a book for a younger cousin, describing the steps, describing how to be good at that particular task, and they could have that again for a gift for the holidays. I'd also like to encourage letter writing. I know you won't be able to see this, but I got this from my nephew as we were beginning the shutdown. And he wrote, "Dear Amy, I get to stay home for a whole month, HOLE, and I get to play hockey with Nona. Love, Gregory." But we could reinvent letter writing and be in touch with family members that we haven't been able to see. Again, such an important literacy skill. And finally, I know that there's a wonderful program, Langley Reads. I want to really encourage all of you to continue to read to your children on a daily basis. I've said this before, my mother read to me until my adult age, through my adult age, in the car in particular. It's really important to hear language written by authors who are talented in their craft, as well as to set aside time for reading every day with your children or to your children, or have them read independently. And I think I'm turning it back to Lamecca for some science ideas.
Hi again. So as we're looking at ways to incorporate science, science is all around us. And again, we're looking for ways that can be engaging and really have student buy-in so that they're intrinsically motivated to participate. So students can engage in mapping the weather from day to day, looking at the humidity, the clouds, the wind, the air pressure. Students can also, over a longer span of time, observe the cycles of the moon and the moon phases and take notes and predictions on that. For, I would say, younger kids, but older kids may find some enjoyment in it as well. Food coloring. Many of us have food coloring in our cabinets. allowing students to kind of mix and blend colors and figure out primary and secondary colors. Still in the kitchen, working with recipes. There are many recipes, particularly in baking, where a student could substitute, let's say, applesauce for oil if they were looking to make a recipe, a cake recipe, more healthy. Students can really practice with substituting key ingredients and seeing what outcome they receive from that. We have museum gallery walks, or when you're going on nature walks with your students, helping students to collect pine cones or sticks, or even looking at worms on days that it rains, and helping students to categorize and label and really just communicate what they see and how they see the world around them. Another way that students can do that of all ages is creating clay models. Using clay can be very therapeutic, as well as be used as a learning tool for students. So students can do a clay model of anything that they want. For our oldest students, they could try doing a clay model of a human heart. Whatever it is that guides students' interest around science, they could use clay to actually do that. And also just asking questions such as the question here, like how long does it take an ice cube to melt outside in the summer heat, or in the refrigerator, or in an air-conditioned room? I know most recently my child asked me, because he really enjoys making eggs for breakfast. It was really hot outside, and he wanted to know if we cracked an egg on the driveway, would it cook or would it not cook? So again, just really looking for ways that students can find enjoyment while also learning and creating space for our mental health and sanity, and just creating for a really fun time over the summer. And at this point, you will hear from Phil Petru.
I actually think I've got one more slide.
Sorry, Amy.
I love, Lameka, you were talking about, I think you were talking about the balance between structure and play, and structure and the importance of rest for mental health. And structure is super important to children, as Lauren mentioned. The question in the classroom is, what are we doing next? So along with structure, we want to make sure that there are open moments for reflection and for wonder. As many of you know, there's a lot of research to support that some of people's best thinking happens in times of rest or in leisure. And I know this to be true for myself. When I would swim laps, if I were trying to solve a problem, all of a sudden the solution, or at least one solution, would come to me when I'm in the pool. So again, we want to give children an opportunity to rest and relax. Be flexible with your child, let them lead, as Phil said. And then also realize, as I know you all do, that some of the best outcomes may be unplanned. And I wanted to share a quick story. When I was a 4th grade teacher, I was in the middle of a math lesson, and I believe it was long division, which is a tough subject to teach with 4th graders. And a praying mantis came to the window and was outside our classroom. And essentially, you know, we just decided we were not going to be learning about long division at the moment. And we got our writing journals and we took them over to the window and we described the praying mantis, and we wrote poetry about the praying mantis. We later researched praying mantises. Praying mantises would come up in artwork later in the year. But again, if you allow yourself to be open and aware of your child's interests in the unplanned moments, I think you'll find yourselves having many, many exciting, enriching moments with your children this summer. And then I think Phil's coming back.
I think I am. I'm trying to. Thank you. So our team just loves this quote from Thoreau about living in each season as it passes. And I think it's very relevant to the time we've spent inside and together as families, and using this as an opportunity for reflection. And so, you know, it's a tough time in our country, and you know, it's time for that piece of reflection for all of us. So I want to move us along here and give some time for questions, but here are some resources that we have here. They are, though some of these seem younger, Even PBS does some great things all the way through middle school and high school. These are really great sites for families to look at for ideas on various theme days that Lauren had brought up, or some of the activities that Lamecca and Amy had addressed to. Some of these you could find here, and some enrichment ideas around that. In addition, for our Langley families, I'll get to this in a second, we have our own reading lists in our summer packets and choice boards for our younger grades, just a variety of things on our summer buttons, on the My Langley pages for you. And Amy mentioned this, I'm glad she did, the hashtag Langley Loves to Read, regarding Langley's commitment to reading over the summer, and an opportunity for parents to share what they're reading, and our primary students all the way up to our middle school students and faculty and staff. So I would encourage you to take a look at that as well. And then last but not least, our summer resources. We have our summer student packets, which are coming soon. We have Summer Studio at Home, which Lauren had talked about her experiences in developing curriculum for. Really exciting. I see some of the course descriptions that are coming out. It's going to be really interesting for kids and for families. I would highly encourage you to look at that. And then if you like some of the things, if you're not a Langley family, but you are really enjoying our message and ideas, I would encourage you to reach out to our admission office. And we've had a very active end of school year and summer with families inquiring about grade level openings. And so I would encourage you to do that. And one thing that's not on here is that in the works, and we will advertise this through social media and our website, we're currently working on another webinar around self-care and social emotional learning, to be determined. I don't have a time or speaker or date yet, but keep your eyes and ears open on that. And so, having said all that, I think our presenters are gonna come back on with me, and we can get a chance to answer some questions, if that works.
Thank you all, Phil, Lamecca, Lauren, and Amy. There's one question that has popped in here, so I will address this to the group, and then others feel free to type in your questions into the chat question field. The first question says, my child misses their connection with their grandparents due to COVID. Do you have some ideas for activities my child can do virtually with their grandparents?
I would say, this is Amy here, I would say that interviews would be a great way to connect with a grandparent, and the child could, again, you and your child could design the interview. That would be a valuable tool in and of itself. You could do a little research on the time period or the date of the grandparent's birth, and then obviously FaceTiming or connecting as best you could with the grandparent in terms of the interview. And then your child might be able to then write up that interview in a little article, and then send that article or write that article and send it to the grandparent. We've had many grandparents help students during distance learning, help them study for quizzes and tests. So any way you can do that, I think, would enrich all of our lives.
I would add, I love that idea, Amy, and that's exactly what I was thinking. And then I think you could take it one step further if you would like. After doing an interview and asking about members of their family and maybe family members they've never met before, you could help your child create a family tree. And that's a really nice visual representation of all of your family, and maybe it's a way to learn and ask more questions even at the interview process. I know I did it for a class one year, and I was asking my mom, and I found it the other day when I was going through some boxes, and it was just really interesting. And I think it's a great way to spark some even more deeper connections, not only with your grandparents, but with you and your child as well.
Great, thank you. The questions are starting to come in. Would you recommend incorporating some online sites into summer learning? Do you have other online suggestions?
Well, I would say it's specific to each family, of course, and what the maybe attention span of a particular student may be, but I know for me, that is something that I've used at home to engage my children. Even right now, as I am speaking with you, my children are engaging on an online program. They're currently using IXL, in which they're doing math and language arts and science. And it's something that they are able to kind of pick and choose their topics based on their grade level. And another online site that many students seem to really enjoy is Brain Pop. And that allows students to explore topics anywhere from computer programming to music, the history of music, history itself. So I think it's a great option if families choose to utilize that to really keep students engaged and get a great insight into where they are academically.
Yeah, I would agree with what Lameka said, and I'll just add a little bit to it. The museums in DC have fabulous websites and are offering a lot of really interesting virtual events that would have otherwise taken place in the museums. So I would encourage that. And there's some really great, if you would Google virtual field trips, some really great sites on that too that and they're really, they're excellent. It's you feel like you're there, and sometimes they are live sessions, and sometimes they're asynchronous, that you can click and on demand. So those are great ways to supplement as well.
Another question, do you have suggestions for balancing the amount of time spent on more academic/enrichment activities with free play, particularly for primary school age children? So is there an optimal balance between the two?
I would err on the side of free play over the academic skill enrichment, because that our slide on play said the work of children is play, and we believe very strongly in that. And so sitting down and copying letters, but the activities on literacy that Amy did too, in terms of taking a sponge out and writing letters and building letters and things like that, can be incorporated in the play. So I shy away from saying, let's do a 50-50 on the strict academics. These kids are really going to pick up and learn. At Langley, we're engaging kids all the time socially, and it's the conversations you're having with children while they're playing is developing their language and literacy and their mathematics. So it's the opportunities you're going to find to play with your children is really what's going to enrich, in my opinion.
And I would argue too that during playtime, they're able to work on their fine motor skills or gross motor skills. It's really a time for them to explore, create, and just kind of reset too. A lot of times they're going to be asking you questions as they play, and that's going to spark conversation. So while it looks like play, so much is being done under the surface that is really beneficial for your children during that time.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to add that that's where I would say follow your child and their interests and their guidance, because students are going to learn most when they are most excited and engaged. And there's lots of lessons that can be learned during that time. So when Phil mentioned the little ones, what came to my mind is students enjoying playing with Legos. If we think about the creative, the critical thinking that's happening as students are building structures or creating worlds, and just the conversation that's happening around that, there's some really deep learning and deep thinking that's happening. And for students, they're playing, but they're actually really, really learning. And just piggybacking off of what Lauren said, just the conversations that come out of that is really rich.
Great. I want to be respectful to folks' time, so if anyone needs to hop off, please feel free to. I'm going to combine a few of the last questions into one big overarching question. There seems to be a theme around any advice on how parents can help motivate their children if they have free choice to, oftentimes they will go to the video games or computer or technology. So how do you help guide students, and how do you help guide them if they say, I don't want to? So any suggestions or advice to guide them to the right set of activities?
I would return to the idea that Lauren mentioned at the beginning of a schedule, and something Lamecca also mentioned, perhaps a checklist. And the technology piece should obviously be either a reward or part of that checklist. And yet that's just one piece of their day. And I think the I don't want to, again, different parents handle that in different ways. I think that if it's just very clear that that will be part of their day, but the other parts of their day are equally important, and that you can model and help get your kids started in those other areas, I think it's a non-negotiable. Again, I perhaps would err on the strict side, but how about you all?
I would say that's where conversation with the child comes into play, and really figuring out what contributes to the I don't want to. Is it that I don't want to work on this particular subject because I find it most challenging, so I'm shying away from it? Is it that I don't want to because I prefer to do something else? So really just trying to get at the root as to why the child is saying that they do not want to. And once you are able to discover that, moving forward from there. So if it's that I simply just don't want to do anything academically related, I would say using the technology as Amy said, as an incentive to say that, you know, when these things are done, then you can then have this for this amount of time. Sometimes, and I know this doesn't always come natural to parents, to do it the other way. So a student, and again, I can use an example. Yesterday, my child said that he wasn't in a good place. He wasn't in a good mood. Our response to that was we allowed him to get on his electronic device for 30 minutes. And he understood after those 30 minutes, he needed to then get to the work that he needed to do for the day. And it worked beautifully. So I think really finding that balance and communication with the child. And I would say the last thing, figuring out where there could be compromise, because sometimes some of those electronic games have learning components to them. So if it is a fix to get on the computer per se, but actually do a learning website, that could be a great compromise between the two.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoy the summer.
Thank you, guys.